While everybody else was out just enjoying the fact that the pit has now been pretty severely nerfed walking into the mid-balance patch for Season 4, and a ton of builds that were struggling previously to be able to crack tier 100 are now easily doing such, and on top of that, builds that are already pushing high into the end game, into the tier 20, 30, and 40, are now enjoying the benefits of being able to push even further. No, but while everybody else was doing that, I was sitting here, just outside of Kyovashad, at my favorite little test bear, Mr. Arctic Bear right here. Why? Well, I was trying to finally answer the question that I get asked every single day, multiple times a day. And it is, can you fit Doombringer and can you fit X-Falls onto Blight? But sadly, that's not what we're here to talk about in this video. Nope, we're here to talk about the fact that Soulbrand is a lying piece of absolute garbage and just doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do. And I have proof, caught it red-handed. Couldn't figure out why I was dying, and it turns out Soulbrand was the reason. Now, just as another quick teaser, I am going to go ahead and tell you about the Doombringer X-Falls build later on. That's going to be another video. Look forward to it. It was interesting. But what do I actually mean when I say that Soulbrand is lying to you? Does it not grant you lucky hit chance? It seems to. Does it not generate barrier? Well, actually, the stat barrier generation is complete trash tier garbage. It effectively doesn't do anything at all. It's something I reported to the developers before, and hopefully it eventually gets fixed. No. What we're talking about is the healing potion generates barrier thing down at the bottom, and most notably the thing that says while you have a barrier, you gain 20% damage reduction. You just don't. It just doesn't do that. Does it give you barrier? Yeah, sure, I can go ahead and use a potion and generate a ton of barrier. It only lasts for 4 seconds, so it drops off almost immediately, which makes it effectively not useless as a legitimate barrier generation tool, but a lot of people like to use it with Shielding Storm. People also use it with Temerity. And then you can do cool stuff like use Undying, so that whenever you cast a skill, you're going to heal, and then you can generate barrier this way, and you can effectively generate infinite barrier, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about that right now. No, let's just go ahead and continue to talk about this issue with the fact that Soulbrand isn't granting you damage reduction when you gain barrier. So you're not gaining a new 20 DR source when you put this thing on. You're only getting the damage reduction to close. Like I said, I have the data to prove it. I sat here up with my buddy the Arctic Bear out in Kyovashad, and I let him hit me about 20 times. The reason why we don't have to really get hit more often than that is because monsters don't actually have that large of discrepancy between their minimum and maximum damage, and you can see very easily that we were getting repetitive numbers over and over and over again. Now, because this is just a 2-digit number, there are definitely rounding issues here. So maybe this 41 was actually a 42, but didn't make it all the way. Maybe this 37 was a 36 and it just high rolled up to 36.9, etc., etc. But if you take a look at the data and how consistent it is, you'll see very quickly that this is definitely pointing to the issue that I'm bringing up, and we can trust the data to be able to tell us this. So if you look at our 20 damage hits here, you'll notice that we have a minimum value of 37, a maximum value of 42, an average value just over 39, and a median value just over 39. And the reason why these two numbers are relevant is because the closer that your median is to your average, typically the stronger that your data set is. But we're going to use this as a basis. Now, let's go ahead and see the other things that we tested, because it turns out you're able to see very quickly just how valueless this piece of gear is. So I went and I generated barrier through that exact means that I just explained, using the Undying to heal, Temerity to actually hold the barrier, and then the Soulbrand to activate damage reduction when you have barrier. Now, I did also test this just like activating it only through like Soulbrand's potion mechanism, and I didn't seem to get different results. But if we go ahead and look at the data that we did get from these same 20 attacks here, we'll notice that we got a minimum of 36 damage, a maximum of 42 damage, an average just under 39, and then a median just under 39 as well. And what does that mean between these two data sets? Well, it means that the min, the max, and the average are all effectively the same. Statistically, almost no relevant difference between these numbers, so something's fishy here. I wore my Soulbrand for both of these tests, so I was receiving the 14 damage reduction from close targets, and I am very happy to say that at least that stat right there is working. I went and tested it as its own separate variable, where I just looked at having the exact same amount of resistances, DR, and then the exact same amount of armor. And I just swapped between using Soulbrand and not using Soulbrand, and I did see the 14% damage reduction. So that's good, that part works. But it's the barrier 20% damage reduction that isn't working. Now, what if it was just like some other weird thing, right? Like maybe it's just that damage reduction isn't working, like the plain stat damage reduction. Well, I ran the exact same test, except instead of activating Soulbrand or anything like that, I just tossed on a helmet that has Hardened Bones. Hardened Bones granting you 25% plain, no niche, no requirements damage reduction. Let's go ahead and look at that data. With Hardened Bones up, you'll notice that we hit a minimum damage of 26, maximum damage of 31, and an average and median damage of 29. And what does that all say when you put it together? Well, if you were to run that through a handy dandy little calculator, you'll notice that the difference is at least 25% damage reduction. Now again, the difference here not being exactly 25 and even the difference in the maximum not being exactly 25 is almost certainly due to rounding errors because again, we're using a 2-digit number here. The game can't show us decimal points, but if we did have floating decimals, we would almost certainly be seeing a much cleaner exact 25% here. Obviously, if you got a bigger data set, it would be a bit cleaner as well. So maximum life works. Lucky hit chance while you have the barrier seemingly works. This one's a little bit harder to test. Luckily for us, the tooltips for your lucky hit chance are fairly accurate. There are a couple stats that don't show up, like Greaves of the Empty Tomb and different things like that. But if I were to grant myself barrier right now, look at my lucky hit chance of 66%, turn on this, and then pop it back up, we have seemingly gained the amount of lucky hit chance that would be 7.6 to be able to increase our lucky hit from 66% up to 69%. So that at least seems to be working. That's pretty great. The DR is working. Again, barrier generation itself is super bugged. I had like a 14% barrier generation that I turned on, and the expected outcome of increasing how much barrier I generated by 14% instead only increased my barrier gen by about 1%. That's not specific to Soulbrand. That's just an issue with the affix barrier generation in general. It is crap. Don't use it. It's not working. But the fact that Soulbrand just doesn't actually grant 20% damage reduction when that is effectively the entire reason why you would use this item is really upsetting. I know that at one point this was tested. Basically, Soulbrand and Temerity and how much barrier they generate have always just like kind of been a problem. I don't know how else to describe it. Just another quick example of like Temerity itself. So it says that effects that heal you beyond 100% are going to grant you a barrier up to a certain amount of your maximum life. And our superior healing potion here is going to heal us for 4,279. That means we should generate 4,279 barrier when I click this. Go ahead and look at it very quickly. And we generated a whopping 1,900 that continues to go up because the potion continues to heal us. And oddly enough, 39% of my maximum life on top of 4,000 flat total life right there does not equal out to a whopping total of 6,800. And that initial of just like 2,000 burst, it's actually indicative of the fact that for whatever reason, barrier generation from Temerity is multiplied by your base life divided by your maximum life. Ava from Maxroll as well as GMS and Sanctuary actually sat down and crunched the numbers there. So even Temerity's barrier generation is like still bugged for whatever reason, but the fact that you're not getting this additional DR is going to lead you to feel exceptionally squishy in situations where you think that you should be significantly tankier than you were previously. I actually tossed this thing on to basically go like, what if I built a full tank, like full barrier Necromancer? And it just doesn't work. So I want to put out this video very quickly just to get it out to people, just so that you're not like confused as to why it's not working in ways that you think that it should. And hopefully maybe save a hardcore player's life. But there you go. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Have you come across anything else weird since this patch hit? I don't know about you, but I felt significantly squishier. Like bosses died super fast. I was able to clear pits very quickly, but I just felt like I was taking a mega ton of damage. Whereas previously I was effectively unkillable on builds like Blight and Shadow Surfer. I was just kind of getting knocked around a lot. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what's happening. There were a couple other people in my chat reporting this as well, whereas there were some other Necromancer players who are saying they were doing just fine. So it leads me to believe that there might be some weird interaction happening between like specific setups of aspects, but I don't have anything to really report on that. But let me know down in the comments what you've been experiencing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps you out in your particular journey, and maybe you don't end up using that 4GA Soulbrand that you found. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.